Bonus video today, super impatient, 2 days on. I want to try and get all this done, so at least I can clear this area from all the supports. Let's see how we did. And in behind there, apart from a few crease marks, it's all looking good. There we go. Clearly I'm not geared up for it, but I couldn't resist coming out and having a quick look. No huge voids I was worrying about, and especially because we didn't have a vibrator rod to stick in and get rid of the air bubbles. It actually worked quite well, just banging it with the hammer, and perhaps it was because it was a little bit more of a wet mix that helped, I don't know. And I know I did say in the last video I was quite concerned that I didn't get the top as smooth as I could have. Looking at it now, I think the way it dried a bit, like when you skim a wall with gypsum, it dries a little bit patchy. And now it's evened out, you really can't see any of those bits I was worried about. When you stick a 6 foot level on there, the most intolerance that there is about 3 mil, which I can live with that. And by the time we put a couple of coats of the epoxy flooring or a thick floor paint on there, the whole lot should be pretty silky smooth. We appear to have had a casualty here, and I also appear to have built a huge playground for the kids. I managed to get all the shuttering out, thank goodness. I was worried how hard that was going to be, but actually it popped out okay with enough leverage and tapping them. Where I had the DPM, it didn't stick anyway, so it came out okay. We managed to get the concrete down in decent enough time, because this weekend just gone, or yesterday, we had 40 people over for a pizza party in the garden. Which was great fun, and Ian, one of our friends' boys, is in a wheelchair, so we were really chuffed that we could get this sorted and he'd be able to come in and use the whole of the garden as well. So it all panned out in the end. So thumbs up to Ian, he was chuffed that we'd sorted it out. Anyway, there we go. Let's go answer some questions. It was a pretty full-on day, and like I said, it kind of skimmed over what I was doing, so I didn't really go into anything in too much detail, but this might cover some of those bases. But I'm of course a DIY, and that was the first big pour for us, so here we go. Heat W. Once it's gone off, I've always sprayed my concrete with water twice a day for about a week. Yeah, I mean, that is, I did spray it for a day or two after, just kind of a mist. I think we were probably okay in the hottest days over that like dry period had passed, and fortunately the day of the pour wasn't crazy hot, and because it was slightly looser mix, we ordered an 80 slump, which but it is quite an easy to work mix. And I think then when he arrived, when he saw our outfit, he added a little bit of water as it I don't know, into the mixer, but anyway, it was easy enough to lug around, so it was fairly slow to cure and dry. Kayaking northeast, done really well. Looking forward to seeing you get the workshop built. Me too. It will be a couple of months before we progress on that. Remember, I'm trying to use this as like a flat surface to build my oak frame on, and I want to get that done before I start putting walls up. Minty large 1, nice work, but do you not need an expansion joint? Quite a few people mention this. It's basically borderline between, it's at the outermost limit of what you should do without an expansion gap or a join or a relief cut. And what I've decided is, because I've got the reinforcing mesh in there as well, it's split from the path, so it's already its own slab. I'd take the risk as is, which is a 5.5 by 6 meter slab. But what I can do is just mark up a line, and I can just whip through with the concrete saw and just put I don't know how deep it needs to be, but a cut through there, and then you can pack that back full with, I think it's either cork or something like that, but you see it quite often on slabs, because that'll be internal. But when I was at the filling station, petrol station the other day, and I noticed their forecourt is split into slabs, and those slabs were about this size, if not a tiny bit bigger, and then the join between each of those, and there must have been about 8 or 10 of them. So I'm pretty happy, and hopefully it won't go anywhere. Right, Jonathan Cooper, I had a thought. When you said you didn't bother to hire a vibrator for around the edges, perhaps an SDS drill on chisel mode with the end cut off an old chisel bit with some hardwood might work. Yeah, I mean, I see what he's saying there. Actually, when I first read that, I thought he meant just using it to vibrate against the shuttering, but actually he's saying put an attachment in and basically just use it with a block of wood on the end of a chisel bit. That would work quite well. In the past, when I did the concrete worktop for the pizza oven build, I used a sander, just a small sander but it was much smaller kind of mould, and that just helped release the bubbles. So yeah, there's ways to get around it, but just by hitting it with the hammer, as you've seen when I took the shuttering off, there's not very many voids at all, so I was quite pleased with that. TL2584, fair play to the concrete mixer driver for giving you a helping hand at times. Yeah, he was a good guy actually, and he obviously knew it was our first thing I said to him was like, we're first timers, so he gave a bit of guidance, but I get the feeling that most concrete drivers are literally there just to do the pour and are pretty much directed by you. So there were points where he was obviously waiting on me and I was waiting on him. But anyway, we kind of got into a bit of a flow of it. And yes, when needs be, he did jump out and just kind of help persuade it inside the shuttering when it was kind of overflowing and we were kind of against the wall a bit there. Tony Taylor said, great job, all of you, driver included. Wondered why you wheelbarrowed through the concrete. Check that question off. She obviously watched right to the end. And yes, that whole scenario of tipping it here on the path and then having to barrow through because we did have enough. I thought we were going to come up short. So yeah, in hindsight, we would have started up there and done it methodically all the way back. Dixie 1967. Wow, great job. Always a panic time when the concrete arrives. It's a stress of timing as well as your hard labour that drains you. You and your dad and your mate did well. Well done to you all. Pouring concrete is all about prepping, timing and stamina. Bang on, because that is pretty much how we felt. You know, it was just as much about the worrying about what was in place and getting everything ready, getting all the tools ready prior to the actual pour. That was pretty exhausting in itself. You can, if you work clever and work smart about it, it could be a lot easier. either with a concrete pump placing it, or even if you're just barrowing it, if providing you got enough for you, it can be a lot calmer. There was a few pretty full-on moments early on, but after a while, because we had a little bit of time to play with it afterwards, it eased off. But yeah, I wouldn't want to do it every day. Cause it's 167 says the concrete pour video dropped the same day as the Essential Craftsman, my other favourite channel. Yeah, I spotted that last night actually. That's a whole different league. He really knows what he's doing there. And as you saw, if you do watch that one, he's just pouring the concrete footings, but it's obviously for a house, but he's got a big team there, concrete pump. Yeah, if you want a how-to, head over to the Essential Craftsman. Mark D says, if you're not happy with the floor finish, you could hire a concrete floor grinder to smooth it out a bit. Personally, I think it looks fine. As I was saying in the video, this slab floor I'm going to be using as our finished floor in the workshop, and with an epoxy finish or a heavy duty floor paint. And I'm pretty sold on it now that it will be smooth enough. But yeah, I could grind it, and I've got that, I don't know what it is, 5 or 6 inch concrete grinder kit, which I used for the worktop. So if there are any little bits, I can do that. But when Dad did his epoxy floor, which I'm still to make a video on, I've got the footage, he took a really old bumpy slab and he hired a big floor grinder and ended up, getting it all polished that way. I don't think it's necessary for this, but yeah, that is, like I said in the video, it's all about timing, and I could have got it absolutely bang on if I'd been on it with the steel trowel a little bit sooner. I just left it that little bit too long, but hey, it could have been worse. Mr. B says, with concrete, a little too much is always enough. Ideal scenario is to have a second fill, like a small shed base or footing you can use it up in. And yeah, that's exactly, that's what this path was, and we ended up using up that spot. So I did spill over into this path, the cobbled bit, which is fine. But if I could have, well, I probably wouldn't have had enough anyway, but if I'd needed to, we could have poured down at the bottom of the slab where I'm going to put the wood store type shed. But I'm going to come onto that in more detail in the future. It doesn't really need to be a concrete slab because it's just for the existing shed. We'll probably just throw down some hardcore or slabs. Robert Adams says, concrete's one of those things that I really don't like to do. I've done enough decent sized concrete pours for friends and it's really not fun, and you never have enough people on hand. It's fair enough, the more people the better. It's right out there with roofing, but more anxiety since you have to get it done before it starts setting up. My only issue with yours is, why didn't you pour against both sides of the drain channel? So this drainage channel, or channel drain, that I've got going along the front. Reason for that is because the path comes down on a slope into the channel drain, and the channel drain is also going that way, so it's going towards that fence and into the gully. This slab is perfectly level, we hope, and higher than the channel drain. So the slab had to be shuttered level, and it's probably about 25-30 mil higher at the highest point, and then it's even higher at the other end. So it had to be shuttered. So that gap, what I've just done, just about, is managed to get the shuttering out, and now I've got a nice gap there which I can backfill. Well, I'm going to put another little bit of DPC down, just so we've got a nice barrier between the slab, well, the path and channel drain area and the slab. We want to keep everything dry, so I'll put a vertical DPC in there inside that DPM, and then I can backfill it with concrete and just haunch it nicely, so I've got a slope away from the slab, if that makes sense. We'll maybe do that in a future video. Rob Darren Brewster, hard work with concrete, but I'm a UK based joiner and have worked on some big shuttering jobs. One bit of advice is to take the braces of your shutters the braces out of your shutters in the next day or so. Otherwise it's hard to get out. I've just learned that, but I did crack off the shuttering on the main ends the day after. Came away fine. Once the concrete is set up, it's going to cure. It was probably going to cure better if those timbers are off. Down here where we got concrete either side of the shuttering was harder to get out. But fortunately, because you've got the DPM, the plastic up one side of it, didn't stick to that, so it came out easy. I think that's pretty much it. A couple of things I haven't mentioned yet in the previous videos. I didn't insulate the slab. That was intentional. Well, it wasn't intentional. I could have insulated. I would have had to go down deeper or not put as much sub-base in. But the reason I'm not too worried about that is I'm going to, it's a nice dry slab, and the way I'm going to build my walls, I'm actually going to drop the insulation down on the outside of the slab slightly. So it's none of the slab around the perimeter will be exposed. But also I'm going to, the foot of all the walls, it'll be a timber, basically a heavy duty shed, but the foot of all the stud walls, it'll be built on one course of block work or bricks. But by having that much masonry, it means in the future, should I want to make it more habitable for a home office or something like that, I can easily do a floating insulated floor in there, like I've done in the garage conversion, and still have that masonry all the way around to make sure that it doesn't mess up all of our timbers and the floor and everything like that. So, and I also figured if the bottom of our walls is masonry, that's probably a little bit better as far as on the internal sweeping up. I can almost hose out the floor if I ever had to or anything like that. But that's why I haven't insulated, and it can be rectified in the future if we did need to. Mesh, the mesh that went in was only 6mm, I think. I can't remember what code that is, but that's basically for kind of sheds and light duty stuff. So it's borderline for this. If you were doing any form of block work type building on it, you'd probably want it more, or if you were putting vehicles in there, you'd probably want to go thicker, but it's as good as it needs to be. And with the mesh panels, I didn't show it in the video, we just had some wire, we started off with wire to tie those together, and then it got pretty tight. We only had 10 minutes left, so we just bunged a load of cable ties on just to hold everything in place. I'm not sure how much that affects the structural integrity once the concrete's cast around it, so they weren't going anywhere. If there are any more questions that I've missed, then do ask. I'll try and answer them, or if not, someone else who knows far more than me will. But there we go. The concrete is done. It's going to take weeks, months to properly cure, years even. But by the time we get round to building the workshop, it's going to be ready to go and dry enough to put our floor finish down and things like that. There we go. Not looking to do another one of those anytime soon. But it was good fun. Learnt a lot. But that's it. Thanks for watching. Remember, if you can, do it yourself, and we'll see you next time.